As more Malaysian youth fall through the cracks of neglect and safety risks, we have one question to ask. Are our children safe, and are they heard? Hello and welcome to Women Talk. I'm Anita Wu, and today we're having a slightly different conversation, an urgent conversation, and yet a painful conversation about the safety and well-being of our children, not just at schools or educational institutions, but in society at large. According to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, DOSM, in 2024, our nation is home to more than 9 million children that are under 18, so that makes up 27% of our population. Behind that number lies a growing crisis. Over 8,500 children are reported in need of care and protection last year, which is a stark increase from the previous year of just under 6,800 cases. And what's more alarming still is the fact that sexual offences have reached 1,567 cases involving physical assaults, right? And let's not even go there. Bullying cases in schools have gone over 10,000 cases nationwide, showing an alarming trend as there's been a surge in violence among the youth. So to unpack this are two women on the very front lines of child protection. We're very happy to have them on the show. Welcome to the show, Katiana Azman, who is a consultant psychologist as well as an expert in child psychology, trauma response as well as family dynamics. And we're having back on the show with us from a previous season. We're very happy to have Dr. Nazria Ahmad on the show, Associate Professor Dr. Nazria Ahmad, who is a member of the Malaysian Crime Prevention Foundation, MCPF, as well as a head of child law and policies of the Faculty of Law at UiTM. As a psychologist and from your experience, what do you think we are missing as a society when it comes to truly seeing our children, you know, and the challenges perhaps that they're having at home that parents don't realize is a problem?
Yeah. I think, and Dr. Nazria, please, she'll probably have a lot of things to say about this as well, but I think that one of the things I'm noticing is one that parents aren't very aware of the fact that childhood is not what it used to be, right? And I think that what our kids are experiencing in schools are stuff that even in my time is just very, very different. Unheard of. And I think a lot of parents and a lot of adults do kind of go by, well, they didn't say anything.
Yes.
So I appreciate that you said that sometimes they don't say it.
Yes.
And so when they don't report it, when they don't say anything, then everything must be well. Or
no news is good news.
No news is good news, correct. And when we take into consideration the fact that children, depending on their age, might not have the emotional and neurological development to be able to articulate the very complex feelings that come with trauma, that come with what they're going through. And so, again, no news is good news, right? So I think adults tend to sort of take that as a depiction of what's going on. What I always tell parents, teachers, and caregivers, I say, look for change. Don't try to, look for changes. As much as I appreciate you wanting to make yourself very well read and look things up on the internet, sometimes just focusing on what are the things that are different about your child. So things like sleep patterns, appetite, socialization, grades, things that are not very typical of your child. And if you're noticing those changes, pay attention. Don't worry about trying to figure out why and connect the dots. Just recognize that change is present and that's probably linked to something else, because that's how kids process complex thoughts, is with change, with behavior change.
Dr. Nazria, on a different standpoint, crime prevention specifically, how do you see bullying fit or play a part in the bigger picture of youth delinquency and the safety issues they're seeing at school today?
Okay, all right. Okay, well, first of all, I just would like to share, like, for, parents or women who are watching us today, actually, Child Act 2001 protect both children who committed crime and children as victims.
Okay.
So, Child Act does not distinguish whether the child committed crime or the child as a victim. Child Act will seek to protect both categories of children. And Child Act recognize that children, because they are below 18, they need the special protection and assistance. Even though in the wake of recent cases when we saw and when we witnessed, many children who actually committed crime.
Yes.
Right? So they need to be dealt according to the law as well. And you mentioned earlier about some statistics, right?
Yeah, bullying.
Yeah, about the bullying statistics. So since 2022 up until 2024, there is an increase. So in 2022, we saw about 3,883 bullying cases. And this increased in 2023 to 6,528.
And now 10,000.
Yes, and in 2024, 7,681.
Okay.
So this is actually the data issued by the Ministry of Education as at 27 of August 2025 this year. Yeah, this year. So basically, there is definitely an increase. We cannot deny it. But majority of cases happen in secondary school, where about 5,689 cases happen in secondary school. And as we can see, the most recent cases involving gang rapes, right?
Yeah.
And in primary school is about 1,992 cases. So there are cases that are on increase both in primary and secondary school. For children who commit crime, majority of cases show that they don't really understand the legal consequences of committing crime.
Correct.
And
or the weight of their action.
Yes, they don't really understand the implication, and sometimes when they are heavily influenced by their friends, that is a very major factor.
Or what they're consuming.
Yes.
Online, perhaps.
Yes, that's right.
Or in media.
And exposure on social media, of course, is now one of the primary factors.
Okay, we've touched on the factors, and what we'd like to know is how do we break this cycle? Right? I think this is really important. So please don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick break, and when we're back, we're going to continue this conversation. Stay tuned.
Hello everyone. In light of the recent cases of bullying across schools in Malaysia, it's important how we as parents and educators know how to help with this issue. So today I'm sitting down with Katiana, a psychologist, who will share with us first-hand experience on how to raise children with empathy and kindness so parents can also apply these same strategies at home. So let's take a closer look. We want to know some of the key principles you apply at home to kind of have that sympathy and also respect for others in your children.
So modeling, long story short, is what I tried to do. So I think this is something that translates regardless of the age bracket, is that children are more likely to be empathetic when they've been shown empathy. I think it's important to validate, because that's a very big important when it comes to empathy. People often confuse that you need to agree in order to validate a child's experience, and that's not true. Ultimately, when we have generated this pattern that it's not safe for them to open up and be their true selves, they're going to want to kind of close that door more and more. But I have had moments where I've had a rough day, something has happened, I've lost my temper, or I've gotten overwhelmed. But then I always kind of be like, look, I'm sorry mommy scolded you, or I'm sorry mommy got upset earlier. That's not because of what you did. Mommy had a bad day.
Right.
So I think that preserving the integrity of that relationship where they are not afraid of talking to you about stuff, that is probably the biggest task of any parent.
Right.
So that's the part that we have to do a lot of work. I don't believe 100% in gentle parenting, because I believe that children need structure, because they are going to grow up and live in a world that has structure. I think that it is a wonderful ideal to tell kids that that the world isn't going to be that way. But I also believe that our job as parents is to prepare our kids for a world when we're no longer around. We don't have to agree and permit everything, right? But I think that we need to be able to validate how they feel all the time.
Small, consistent efforts can make a world of difference. When children feel heard, seen, and validated, kindness naturally follows, both in school and beyond.
Welcome back to Women Talk. I'm Anita Wu, and we're continuing a very pertinent discussion about children, their safety, and if they're being heard. On the show today, let me reintroduce our guests to you. They are Dr. Nazria as well as Katiana, who are both on the very front line of child safety. How do we break the cycle of hurt children or hurt individuals hurting others?
Yeah, okay. So basically, I think again we can break it down into two categories: children who commit crime in cases of bullying, and children as victims of abuse.
Yeah.
So these two categories of children basically require separate treatment, separate attention, and also separate forms of intervention.
Yes.
Right. But when it comes to like children who committed crime, I think it's really important, not just committed crime, maybe just violating school rules or school disciplinary rules. Even for that, we also need to look into it, and we need to address, and we basically need to tell them, like basically if you commit this, what are the legal consequences?
Can you tell us what are the red flags that that parents and teachers often miss until it's too late?
I think when we go back to what Dr. Nazria was saying, children who have committed crimes or who break the rules and stuff like that, people often look for sort of like the big gestures, the big behaviors, right? Sort of things where they are talking about it openly, they are openly aggressive to other children. They're looking for all of those things, but it's not just those things. I think those are the stuff that's easy to pick up on. Look for kids who are very withdrawn. Look for kids who don't have a social circle, who tend to kind of favor their own company and who almost can't really fit into the class, who struggle with rules as a whole. So it could be as simple as being told it's time to transition from one class to another, or one activity to another, or being reminded on homework. Kids who don't conform well to structure, those are the types of things that you want to keep an eye out for. So those are, I would say, for the kids who are of, I would say, higher risk of potentially having those types of struggles. And for the kids who are being victimized, again, look for kids who are sort of changing with regards to their typical, so kids who might be performing well or who were average in school, grades dropping, no longer kind of wanting to be with their normal social group. And again, if they're normally quite chatty and being quite reserved. So, you can see how there's a lot of overlap between the things to look out for, whether the children are the ones being targeted or the ones doing the targeting. There is a lot of overlap with regards to, so that's why I tell teachers,
behavior.
Correct.
Their
Because
behavior.
sort of piggybacking on what Dr. Nazria was saying, there's a reason why they don't see consequences. It's because their brain is neurologically not as fully developed as ours. And it often shocks adults when I say this, that the brain fully matures at the age of 28.
That's correct.
Yes,
that's correct.
And the part that is responsible for connecting the dots between action and consequence is very much housed within. Yes. And so it is quite natural for them to not recognize that whatever they're doing right now, which brings them maybe instant gratification, has an impact. And so it is very much our duty to help bridge that gap.
So recognizing these things are one thing, but can you imagine, like, if you're a parent and okay, so this is don't lose hope. You can still make these changes at home.
Yes.
But it's about building a kind of environment at home where kids feel safe to speak. I mean, because sometimes the families these days don't have time.
No.
To even ask your children, how's your day? So maybe some advice from you.
I think that, I was mentioning to Dr. Nazria earlier, like, I think I'm, as a psychologist and as a mum, it's been a very challenging time for me because I've had to reflect as well on the fact that a lot of this does start at home. And while there are all of these services like what Dr. Nazria does, what I do, that can support the children who come to us, a lot of it comes from home. And so it does fall on parents. And I think parents need to be able to keep the home a safe space by keeping conversation open and judgment free, regardless of your own fears and your own worries and your own being very aware that people are judging you for your actions.
Right.
Yeah.
Parenting nowadays in the social media generation is no fun because
Yes.
you constantly feel like people are ridiculing.
Yeah.
Yes, you're
And
being
judging
policed
you.
and judged.
And judging you.
So I
Yeah.
think that parents need to kind of keep all the noise out as much as possible and remember that the relationship you have with your child is the most significant relationship they will have, and it will teach them about how to communicate with the world. So if you start the day by telling kids, you can't talk to me because I'm going to judge you and prosecute you and be judge, jury, and executioner, they are not going to be able to know how to do that with the rest of the world. So
Right.
I think that's probably no pressure, moms and dads, but that I think is the part that's really important.
Actually, the law that we have now have shifted the responsibility from government to parent.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
There are legal ramifications.
Yes, there are legal ramifications, and that the law recognise, family as a fundamental unit, and that the law, actually requires parents to be there, to be present, and in the event that parents are unable to do it, their guardians, their family members, their relatives.
Have the right.
Yes, they do have the right
To take over
to actually
custody.
reach out
Yeah.
to a
Okay.
child.
Okay, not so far. Okay.
Reach out to a child.
But that is on the table,
So, we need to be aware that there is this paradigm shift,
Yeah.
and there is a level of expectation now, that the law imposed on parents and guardians.
So can the parents themselves, and say, for example, you say other relatives, be legally held, charged, actually, for neglect?
Well, actually, under the Child Act 2001, that is actually possible, under Section 31 of the Child Act. And in fact, now the law also imposed mandatory reporting, for those who knew that the child is a victim.
Right.
And if the person doesn't report, it's actually, a liability
Aiding and
under
abetting
Child Act.
or concealing information.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Dr. Nazra. This is highly relevant, and we're going to continue this conversation right after this quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Women Talk. We're still on this topic of child protection. How do we rebuild? Because it tells us that we have a broken society. These cases have been on the rise, and healing is required. So it takes a community, wouldn't you say? Katiana, what's your take on this?
There's a reason why the saying is it takes a village to raise children.
Yeah.
And I think we need to end the cycle of disconnect that comes with you want to blame it on phones, you want to blame it on just the pace of our lives. I think that we need to be more present. So parents, caregivers, not just saying it's the teacher's job, the parent's job, just kind of pawning it off. I think we need to be more connected because we need to have a tribe to raise these little humans because the future is unknown and it's hard and, and who else to guide them through it but us. So I think we need to kind of end that cycle of just distancing ourselves from the hard stuff and
Numbing out
and being present for our kids.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about element of trust, again, it depends on the environment because a child could be a victim in his or her own house, but a child can also be subjected to bullying in school, right? So when you have different setting involving children, you need different stakeholders to come in. But fundamentally, parents and I would also like to invite extended family members as well, to come into the pictures and to reach out to any child because I believe that for every friend, auntie, sister, cousin, there's a child that you can reach out to.
Yeah,
not necessarily just parents. And that is, of course, if a child is a victim in the house. But if the child is a victim in school, then of course you have teachers, you have counselling teachers, and Ministry of Education has also come up with an anonymous complaint mechanism.
Yes.
In order to encourage and promote children, to voice out their their concern or to lodge complaint without a feeling of fear, and intimidation as well. And of course,
that trust is important.
Yes, that trust is
and
important.
Anonymity. Yep.
Yes, anonymity, because children needs to feel safe that, whatever they talk about, whoever they report to, it would remain confidential, because often children are deterred from saying anything because they felt that, their identity would be revealed.
Yep.
And then, they would rather just keep things to themselves.
Yes, and I think this is something that we can share with our kids right away.
Yes.
That there is a system of anonymity,
Yes.
at schools,
Yes.
that you can report.
Yeah. And also, Talian Kasih.
Yes, Talian
That
Kasih.
is, prepared by the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development, that can be utilized by all sectors, not just children, but parents as well.
And teachers.
And teachers too. And also, I think what's important in every setting, right? Adults needs to be reminded that it is their responsibility at the end of the day. But again, adults who can take responsibility, not necessarily labeled as parents, but they can be anyone around the child. Just step in and reach out.
I think one thing that I want to communicate that's so important to anyone who has a child in their realm that they're protecting or taking care of is that we have to also stop diminishing what they go through just because they're kids.
Yeah.
We often as adults go, just being teased in school is no big deal. Getting smacked on the arm by an adult is fine. I got worse. We tend to sort of pivot to that, and there's a lot of this diminishing and invalidating of the child experience. And yes, 90% of the time what they go through is pretty small compared to what we do day to day. But I think that what that does is that it communicates to children that what you feel doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes a habit almost.
And it builds its own trauma.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it becomes habitual in the sense that when now I think adults don't act when they should. It's like there's a lot of this like, it's not my problem, it's no big deal. There's a lot of this sort of pushing away. And so I think we need to validate that experience, even if you don't agree, even if you don't understand, to be able to recognize that kids are hurt in whatever way, I think is something that needs to change.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
It's the very first step.
And you can do that at home.
Thank you. That is great. And what about you, Dr. Najria? What would you like to see change, and how do you think we can get there sooner?
Well, I think, for parents and, for parents in general, for those who are watching us, especially for moms, for dads, I think, they need to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, dads too. Yeah, it's not just all on moms.
Yeah. I mean, they can be assisted. They can always reach out. And also, parents needs to have close relationship with teachers in schools, the community.
Yes.
Community, religious institution in areas, because I think, instilling these religious values are extremely crucial, regardless whatever religion, whatever race, the children. I think that is extremely crucial.
Good moral values.
Yeah, good moral values. And I think, I would also like to invite, in my capacity as a committee member of MCPF, to teachers who are probably, watching us today. You can always reach out to Malaysian Crime Prevention Foundation.
Right.
Because we can also offer technical assistance and conduct a crime prevention awareness program in school.
Yes.
Specifically to prevent, crime prevention in school.
You already have teams for this, right?
Yes.
You send out.
Yes, we already
awareness.
have team. Yeah, so they can just reach out to us, and that is part of the things that we can do for the community.
This is wonderful, and thank you so much for saying that, and for doing the good work that you both are doing on the field, and also structurally, it's so important that we as audiences are able to also do something on our own. I think if anything, we can all do something. With that, thank you very much, ladies, and do follow us on social media at Women Talk TV3 or at TV3 Malaysia. And we'll see you in the very next episode. Thank you for spending your time with us. You can also catch us online. See you in the next episode.